much, sir, for your time today. And of course, we also have the Executive Director of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, and that, of course, is Me Jennifer Ntlasing. Thank you so much for your time. Now that we have the panelists, sitting across the panelists, we have the stakeholders from various organizations and formations who will be adding their voices to today's discussion. They include Sonke Gender Justice, Memeza Shout. We also have with us the National Council of People Living with Disabilities and the National African Farmers Union, who will also be adding their voice to this very important discussion. We also have a representative from Total Shutdown, and of course, aware.org. So those are the stakeholders that are here with us currently. But of course, we know that there are many, many more voices out there that would love to engage in this very important conversation. And we look forward to your input in this conversation of national importance. That is why we are now really calling for maximum participation far and wide, and calling on members of the public to also, make use of this platform to engage with the panelists and to also engage with the stakeholders through our WhatsApp line, our GBV dialogue WhatsApp line, which is 079 070 9985. That is 079 070-9985. That's the number that you can use to WhatsApp us. Please do send through your text messages as well as your voice notes, which will be heard and read in today's conversation. And the question of the day is, what do you believe still needs to be done to improve access to justice for victims as well as survivors of gender-based violence and femicide? Now, let's open the dialogue with opening remarks from the Minister of Police, General Begicele, and we'll also hear from the Minister who's sitting right beside him, Minister Maite Mashabane. Over to you, Minister Cele. You can do it from where you're sitting, Mr. Cele.
Thank you very much, Liranzo. Everybody, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Minister. I know you are from far from Emalahleni. Minister in the Presidency, the Deputy Minister of the Police, National Commissioner that is here, Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution, Advocate Tikok, IPT Head, and all other people that are here. One stakeholder I did not mention is a Condoleezza that is here in the House. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Allow me to start this dialogue by sharing my vision with you. My vision is when a young woman walking alone in the middle of the night, from wherever she comes from and wherever she goes, without a fear of being harassed, assaulted, raped, or even murdered by a man. This is a vision that all of us will have to fight hard and be hopeful that is realized during our lifetime. The brutal killing of women in this country is a shame I carry each day as a South African, as a cabinet member, a member of the society, a father, a husband, and a man out there. It's a fact. Men commit these heinous gender-based crimes. It's often men that the women know, men that they love, and men that they trust, and the men that they expect the protection from them. We continue to improve. Ladies and gentlemen, gender-based violence is a priority crime in the police service, as also the President has declared it as a second pandemic. We continue to improve and intensify the combating, prevention, and investigation of crimes committed against women across all ages, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. Pillar 3 of the national strategic that the Minister can speak better, Minister Maite can speak better on, and Femicide task us as a security cluster to ensure that all GBV and F victims and survivors should be able to access criminal justice system. They should access a system that is efficient and sensitive to the needs of survivors while being accessible and responsible. In our response to gender-based violence, femicide, the police are making progress in resourcing specialized units that deal with GBVF cases with both funding and human capital. We have the FCS, that is a Family Violence and Child Protection Sexual Offences Unit, has trained specialist detectives to investigate gender-based violence. The FCS had made significant strides in securing justice for victims, and its detectives continue to put together watertight cases that secure multiple life sentences for GBVF-related cases. From the start of April 2020 to date, 21,203 cases of domestic violence were reported, with 14,777 suspects charged. The first 6 months of this year saw 217 life sentences handed down, 251 accused from 200 dockets of domestic violence. While the FCS continues to be beefed up with more officers to handle the workload, officers within the unit and officers at stations continue to undergo specialized sensitivity training in order to provide a professional service to victims. The treatment of victims and survivors of GBVF with compassion and professional is a policy of the SABC. However, the treatment of some complainants of domestic violence at police station remains a concern. Ladies and gentlemen, those officers who choose not to comply with the policy of SABC, which is to treat victims with respect and dignity, those officers who shame us by turning victims away don't have a place in the South African Police Service. Such acts are dereliction of duty, and this is a serious offense that warrants report them, and we will deal with them. Well, there's been a question here now and again, Minister, how do we report them? Here in my hand, Minister, we have a police directory. This police directory will have to be available, put them at the police stations. It's got every number of every police station in the Republic of South Africa, every station commander, the Minister of Police, National Commissioner, Deputy Minister, and all other deputies and divisional commissioners, all district commissioners are here. So it will be easy for the public out there to be able, if you are not assisted in your station, you phone the next league until you reach the minister, you reach the commissioner. So it's our effort as the South African Police Service members to be accessible and make sure that every member in South Africa, every citizen has an access. This is what we'll try to put in the police station, supply, and everybody at the end of the day will have to try to have this directory. If anyone believes they have been failed by any man or women in blue, I also encourage you to make use of our GPVF complaints line, which is 0800 333 177. I repeat, 0800 333 177. The rape kits that we had a problem with, that has been resolved. We have come with the contract that it will last us for next three years, so we won't have a problem now of having the kids missing out on the station. Ladies and gentlemen, while we collectively wear our masks, sanitize our hands, and maintain social distance in order to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, the question is, what are we doing as collective to prevent the spread and ultimately bring an end to the second pandemic, which is the war on women? Those people that have declared the war on women will have to respond collectively to say enough is enough. The goal of this discussion is to respond to the vision of all women living without fear. Realizing this vision can't be the work of the police or the courts alone. This is why we must have robust engagement on this very emotive subject. I'm sure The inputs made here will further highlight each of our own roles that we must play in creating a country where women are safe and free. But for us to ensure the vision is realized, kufanele sithi kwanele, enough is enough, izinto masijike. The change must be at our police stations from the most junior officer right up to the top management. The change must come from within our homes, our communities, in boardrooms and other places of work, schools, places of worship, educational institutions, and all public spaces. The input today should lead all of us into solution on how we will achieve the vision as collective. We spend a lot of time and energy fighting among ourselves. Let's have one declared enemy here. That is a gender-based violence and femicide. All together, we will win this one. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those opening remarks. Quite clear that a question has been posed. What is your role, South Africa? Let us then hear from the Minister who's responsible for really just overseeing the response collectively to this scourge, or what has been described as the second pandemic. Minister Maite Nkwane Mashabane, can you please take us through your thoughts this afternoon?
Well, I think I should take this opportunity to thank once again the partners I have that allowed the push by me, because we are 6 appointed by the President as members of the IMC, together with my honorable colleague here, Minister Cele. May I also recognize his deputy, Mr. Kasel Matali, and fellow panelists, ministers are also part of this panel. The panel focuses on gender-based violence and femicide and the implementation of the National Strategic Plan, which we should not be working on it as government alone, but with all the civil society organizations that are with us. What I liked is that as we were walking into this room, Minister Cele reminded me that, by the way, we should be fighting with COVID-19, not this so-called and really the real second pandemic of men making women's lives impossible in a free South Africa. Women don't do this painful things to themselves. It is men. The perpetrators are all men. So, yes, it has to start with the communities. Yes, it has to start with all people who have raised their hands and said, we will serve this government and make sure that every woman, your dream, every young girl can walk the streets of South Africa, of a free South Africa, without fear of being tampered with. But it must start from the bedroom. That's why we should never even have had femicide in our books. Having said that, yes, we have adopted through Cabinet the National Strategic Plan, which we didn't sit in smoke-filled rooms and adopt it ourselves. This has been done under the watchful eye of the President, together with civil society organizations, then thereafter brought and was well received and adopted by the Cabinet. I have been requested to read out the pillars that brought in these 6 ministers to work together with the civil society, as and when we conclude, we need to conclude with speed. The Council, It is the 6 pillars is accountability, coordination, and leadership, prevention and rebuilding social cohesion, efficient and sensitive criminal justice, adequate care, support, and healing to the victims, building women's economic power and financial access. Lastly, better information management to inform action. This year, 2020 August, which today is the last day of August that was supposed to be celebrating the Women's Month, the whole month. We continue to celebrate the Women's Month in August because women marched years ago to say no, to say enough, it's enough to all these things. But here we are. This year we were supposed to be focusing on that which President had instructed us to. Focus on generation equality. That is, we no longer talk about how will the women reach there, but that generation equality is those who marched more than 60 years ago and those who are crawling today. They should not go back and have to go through what we've gone through. We are here to say gender-based violence and femicide should be history. We shouldn't be saying, as we fight the globally, COVID-19, we have a second pandemic that has been hiding, that has been exposed by this COVID-19, and is called gender-based violence and femicide. So this call to South Africans from all corners of leadership that Honorable Minister had spoken to need to rise up, but in particular, those who have always been perpetual victims are saying they are tired of being victims because they were not spectators when the fight for freedom of this country was on. They participated because they wanted a peaceful South Africa where we do not discriminate, where love is love and not love of show off, and in the corners they get into trouble and even get killed. No masculinity, chauvinism, patriarchy, and all the ills that only looks at making women feel like they are the second fiddle. We want to celebrate Women's Month 365 days of the year. Then in August, we just remember that there was a time on the 9th of August, 1956, that our grandmothers fought, marched, when men were thinking it's going to be too dangerous. They couldn't do this. But now that is over. Now that we are 26 years after South Africa has declared itself as a free country, women should also be feeling the same, women and children. It shouldn't be that I get a call at 12 at night from Minister Galetz's mate. I don't know what we're going to say. Now we are counting body number 30, and it's June 2020, and it's under lockdown. Lockdown because there's COVID-19. Other countries are dealing with COVID-19. We are dealing with that, and with where should women go? We also agreed earlier on informally that actually people who need shelters are the perpetrators. Women should be left alone and be able to carry on with their lives because they have done absolutely nothing to no one. Women and children need love. Civil society and all of us, from government, from all of our walks of our lives, we are saying indeed enough. It's enough. Other countries are focusing, because this was the year we're supposed to be celebrating Beijing, on generation equality. Generation equality is about mobilizing society to break down whatever shackles that had been left of patriarchal practices and respect to toxic masculinity. And in all corners of our society and countries, this is what the world is doing. Can we give women a break? Can they be able to lead their lives in a free South Africa? So thank you.
Very loud and clear, Minister. Can we breathe, essentially? Can women have a break? That's the question that the Minister is posing. But I want to open up this conversation now to the stakeholders that are present and to the many South Africans that are watching this through the various live streams, as well as television channels that are carrying this information, this very important conversation. The Minister of Police has mentioned that, you know, he hangs his head in shame as a man, as a father, as a husband, with regards to the unacceptable levels of how women are being killed in this country. But it's important that we bring in the voices of men in this very important conversation. Now, if you allow me, I would like to maybe hear from the stakeholders that are here with us. I know that we do have Sonke Gender Justice that has been quite vocal about the role of men in this conversation and how they're going to be able to be equipped and empowered to respond and not just be spectators, but be active participant in this conversation. Can I maybe get a hand from the organization and just add to this conversation? There you go, ma'am. If you can just introduce yourself and just give us your input with this matter.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gpvf from Sonke Gender Justice.
Can you just pause for a minute? Can you put on your microphone, please, so we can all hear you? There you go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gpvf from Sonke Gender Justice. With this issue of GBV forum, we think that we need to engage our men to be part of the initiative, to be part of the solution. We shouldn't just decide on their behalf. So if we do things like community dialogues, where we teach our men, or we relearn what they have learned to be head of the family, to be controlling, or to be the one to protect us initially. Because most of the men, if you check, they think we need protection as women. But seriously, we don't need protection. We just want them to let us be. We want them to be there for us, but not protect us, because they're protecting us from them as men. So we think if we engage men in our initiatives, that would be the solution, to hear from them, to let them speak for themselves, to say what's wrong with them, what went wrong. We know our culture actually made a lot of these men to be who they are today. But we need them to relearn that and know that we women, we can also protect ourselves, and we don't need them to protect us. Thank you.
Loud and clear. Thank you so much for that contribution. Let's maybe listen to the conversations that are being had outside this room right now. I believe that we do have some contribution from South Africans who have made use of our WhatsApp line, and that WhatsApp line again that you can use to interact with us, send through your voice notes, send through your texts on the issues of the day. That is 079-070-9985. Colonel Papeli, can you maybe just let us know what is being said out there?
Thanks, Lorraine. We've got quite a few voice notes from ordinary South Africans. I'm just going to play a few. if my colleague can just switch on the speakers up there.
Hello, my name is Kefas Mulava. I think the Minister of Police should put in place a legislation wherein perpetrators, rapists and murderers should not be given bail. And again, there should be harsh sentences that are given to these perpetrators as a lesson to those who are still planning to do it in future. I think that is in that way they can also work with the Department of Justice and other relevant departments in order to come up with a plan as to how can men be conscientized and be counseled, be advised about how serious these crimes are, so that maybe it's a question of upbringing or something, but there shouldn't be any man or any rapist or a murderer who should just be given a lesser sentence. It doesn't look like they are taking these issues of abusing women serious. Thank you very much.
My name is Dr. Vuyelwa Nhlapo, and what I would expect from the Minister Bekicele of Police with regard to gender-based violence is a prompt action. We are tired, as women, we are tired of the rhetoric and without any actions. We would like prompt action, and those that are involved in gender-based violence to be brought to book very quick. Thank you. My name is Dr. Vuye.
My name is Makau Valencia Shivuri. I think the Minister of Police needs to look at the gender violence, more especially when it comes to females against females, whereby we are being oppressed by black females in the working environment. Then there's also gender issues to men against females, which is in this country. Something needs to be dealt with. There's still a stigma, and also men, females in our country. My name is Nelisa Makutumana. I would like the Minister of Police to train more police officers on how to treat people who come and report cases on gender-based violence, because most people are scared because of the way they are treated when they go to report their cases. And also to spend more on advocacy in the communities so that people know that gender-based violence is not the right thing. It should stop. Enough is enough.
All right, Colonel, maybe just pause it there for a bit and just take some responses. Many issues are being raised, but I would like to maybe start with the constant call, Advocate de Kock, that South Africans are having about how the courts are quite lenient on perpetrators of gender-based violence. It's a perception that's out there. Are you able to maybe, take us into confidence as to what is going on with regards to the court system and how it is dealing with gender-based violence? Of course, answering the bigger question is, how do we improve access to justice system for survivors and, of course, for victims of gender-based violence?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the opportunity, Ministers, for the prosecuting authority to be part of this panel and this dialogue. I think the first point we wish to make as the MPA is that this issue is high on our agenda. It's probably the most important priority of the prosecution. And so we place the victims in the center, at the center of the system. That is the approach. The courts are on a regular basis denying bail to perpetrators. The courts are also giving long-term imprisonment, including life sentences, for the perpetrators of violence against women and children. And we put a lot of energy both to assist the investigation and to ensure that there's an effective prosecution in our courts. As far as enhancing our services are concerned in the system, The Minister of Justice has created the dedicated sexual offences courts. They are throughout the country. And what happens in a dedicated sexual offences court is that you've got specialised services. So on the one hand, you have prosecutors who are specifically trained to be able to deal with these cases effectively in court. And they work in close partnership with the detectives of the family violence units of the police services to prepare a case for court. The court itself is sensitized to the issues relating to how these cases must be dealt with in courts. So I think that's an important demonstration of how serious we are as a criminal justice system to ensure that these cases get the proper attention in our courts. Of course, from time to time, people are released on bail. So it always depends on the circumstances of each individual case. And I think we should remember that there's a presumption of innocence in our law, which means that when a case is presented to court, particularly at the early stages, when a prosecutor has to get up on a first appearance, then it's very important that we have sufficient information that we can place before the court to justify keeping the person in custody. So this is where it comes in. Here is where we need communities to be part and parcel of working with the system, working with the police, because we are dependent on communities for information. We are dependent on witnesses to give witness statements. The sooner we can get that evidence, the easier it is for us as prosecutors when we get up in a court to say, here you are dealing with a perpetrator. On the face of it, at this early stage, this is what the person has done, and this is the evidence that we already have collected to tell the court how serious it is, and that this person is linked to that evidence. That, I guarantee, will put us in a position then to ensure that we keep that individual in custody. So in summary, the system is geared up to prioritize all these cases. We've created dedicated courts throughout the country. We've put dedicated services to support the victims. We need the partnership with our communities, one, and we need communities and witnesses to work very closely with detectives. So that is my plea. Going forward, when we speak as a society, as a country, let us be serious about what we are saying, and let us all contribute to the solution. And I would really like us to enhance the partnership that we have with the communities, partnership with the NGOs, and then we're going to be successful in dealing with the challenge. Thank you very much.
Speaking of NGOs, Advocate, I would like a response from the floor as well. I know that the Total Shutdown movement has been quite vocal about some of the shortcomings of government. I mean, one of the voice notes that we heard just now was talking about we're tired of the rhetoric without any action. What does action look like? That's a question I have in my mind. But I just want to hear from the floor as to what we've heard about South Africans and what they want to put on the agenda here, calling for harsher sentences. Many questions posed to the police minister, saying that he needs to intervene to make sure that perpetrators stay put behind bars. And of course, the training of police officers, Minister, that's something that is always going to come up. Are you able to shed more light regarding this? And of course, I will take some questions. Please feel free to raise up your hand so I can see if anybody has a comment, if anybody has a contribution to add to these discussions. But, while we wait for the stakeholders to try and get on board, training of police officers, Minister, what's going on this front?
Well, I've got two generals here that are responsible for training of the police, I think Mgwenya and Zulu, and a responsible person for such of the FCS, General Mosekiti, are here. Maybe they can speak for themselves. I've been speaking on their behalf all the time. They are here today. They'll have to tell the nation what are they doing.
Right. General, the question is out there. Are police trained? Are police capable of actually assisting victims, survivors of gender-based violence? We've heard far too many stories of people saying, we've been turned away. Police are telling us to go and sort it out with the husband when we come and report domestic violence. tell us about the training of police officers. Can you just explain to us what the process and how many, if you even have those figures as well, how many police officers are going through this training, General?
Thank you very much, Ranzo. Good afternoon, ministers. Good afternoon to the viewers. The conduct of individual police officers at the Frontline Service Center remains a big concern to the South African Police Service. I must indicate that all police officers during their basic training program, they get subjected to gender-based related programs to ensure that as they go out there at the Client Service Center, they are able to provide the required service. We provide them with the Domestic Violence Act training, Child Justice Act training, victim empowerment training, human rights policing training, and other related programs to ensure that they are empowered. After basic training as well, we also have a situation where while they are already at the police stations, we provide for them in-service training programs, which is where enhanced programs that talks to that which they would have underwent at basic training is provided to them. On an annual basis within the South African Police Service, in our plan, we include quite a number of members that will be subjected to the in-service training. As we speak, in this financial year, after having readjusted our program emanating from COVID-19, we will be training over 1,200 in terms of the in-service training program. But also, as indicated, all members, for instance, on the 1st of October, we will be enlisting 3,000 members. Those 3,000 members, we will, as they complete their basic training, they will have been trained on dealing with domestic violence cases or domestic violence related cases. I must also indicate that even at the Client Service Center, emanating from the Indaba that was held in 2016, we have the 6 ministerial point plan, which informs the victims that which they need to demand at the Client Service Center. We have posters in every police station, which is intended to remind our police officers that which they need to do whenever victims of gender-based violence walk into the Client Service Center. We are saying in those 6-point plan, no victim of gender-based violence should be turned away. And we are also saying they will have to be treated with respect and dignity. We are also saying that they must be interviewed in a victim-friendly support service center. We also acknowledge that not all police stations might have the victim support-friendly center. However, there is provision for a private room where a victim of gender-based violence can be treated. We are also saying only trained experts. We have the FCS units that are trained to investigate cases of gender-based violence. They are the ones who must investigate those cases, and further, victims must be referred to health facilities where they can be assessed and also assisted. And also we are saying continuously, members of the South African Police Service must provide victims and their families with an update in terms of the cases that are reported to the police. We are saying we are not yet there. We are currently reviewing our training programs to ensure that we enhance that which we are having currently, after having observed that despite that which we are having, that which we are providing, there are still challenges. But I must also indicate we have a lot of good police officers that are assisting victims very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, General, for your input.
Just one point on that.
Of course,
as we have
Minister.
agreed with the National Commission that looks like at every police station you'll have to have a dedicated desk. A dedicated desk and a dedicated person, so that the first contact with the police should be friendly, social, viable, be able to ask, because we're told by the NPA that you win or you lose your case on the first contact. So those people should have been dedicated. It should not be anybody that is any politician at any given time, people that don't have time and all that. That's what we're working towards. All 1,153 police stations and contact points to have dedicated people that will be trained, as she says, but also working with the NPA to train the basic things so that we don't have this clash of people not knowing what to do and people not taking the issue at hand in a very serious way. Thanks.
And of course, Minister, it will promote accountability at station level when that does happen. So the Minister is, proposing a dedicated desk to make sure that the system is victim-centered. Advocate, I saw your hand up. How do you think this is going to actually assist the answer that we're trying to get here, as to get justice for victims of gender-based violence? Do you think this will, go a long way in doing that?
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity, ministers and deputy ministers and national commissioner. I'm going to sigh because the reality is we can talk, but what happens as we speak now is an experience of a woman or a citizen of this country and how they are treated by law enforcement. And that's critical. Because when I walk into a police station, my expectation is that I'm going to be treated with dignity and respect. The experience of many South African women who are victims of gender-based violence has not been the case. Right? And we're speaking from experience because we walk the walk with the women into the police stations and the courts themselves. Right? You correct, Minister. The first responder experience is going to make or break that woman's case. So when I walk into a police station and I report a domestic violence, and a police officer says to me, go back home. You can sort it out with your husband or your partner. That's my experience. And it happens to the majority of South African women, where the police officers become social workers instead of enforcing the law. Because all that they're supposed to do is to take my statement and investigate. And that has to be emphasized. The second aspect of it is, once that is done, we do not hear from the police for the longest of time. We are the ones who are supposed to then follow up from the police and find out how far your matter is. So there is no interaction with the complainant on the status of her case. Let's assume that you have a police officer who has done exactly that, who informs you and hands over the docket to the prosecutor. And that's where I'm coming in, Advocate de Kock, is that we have a problem with prosecutors who do not apply their minds on the cases and are willing to not go ahead with the prosecution. And then you have a blame game being played. It's either the police or is the prosecutor. And we have to emphasize that there's a difference between what happens at regional magistrate courts and at the high courts, because we have challenges with prosecutors and magistrates at the regional courts. The kind of treatment that citizens received at those courts and the kind of sentences, because you have minimum sentences that are laid out in the law, but you have had magistrates literally looking the other way and not implementing the law as required. So if I give an example of a case in the Free State in Welkom of Naledi Lishoro, who was murdered by her boyfriend. If civil society did not intervene to even prepare a petition and work closely with the prosecution to make sure that bail is denied, that young man would have been given bail if we didn't get involved as civil society, right? But there is a directive to the prosecutors to make sure that they deny bail at all times, but you find prosecutors not doing that. So I think we're doing our best at civil society level to push and ask for accountability, but we need to be met halfway. by law enforcement officers, right? And deal with the hierarchy of the police system, where once you raise a problem in a particular police station, you are told that you have to wait for the head of the Gauteng. I mean, I've got the list of all the commissioners and everybody else. General Msikidi knows me. I call her and send her cases that nothing has happened to them at a particular police station, right? And we have to escalate, right? So if you're not empowered enough, or you don't know General Msikidi, your case is dead in the water because there's no General Msikidi who can assist you. So we are privileged enough to have that General Msikidi's number, and we are able to escalate issues. But that's not how South Africans should be living.
And it shouldn't be like that, Advocate.
It shouldn't be
You're
like
quite
that.
right.
We need to. Yeah. So
let's get the answers for you, Advocate. I mean, your points are very well documented. Let me bring in maybe accountability issue. You know, you're saying that as civil society, you are playing your part, but you also need to be met halfway. But accountability, who watches the people that are supposed to be enforcing the law? Of course, we know that it is the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. Mentlase, take us through your vision. We know that you've just recently been at the helm of IPID, but you know the issues very well. You've been in the sector for over 20 years. Take us through the issues. How is it that IPID could actually bring accountability when it comes to station level, where we are seeing that police, in some instances, some police are actually failing the public?
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much for that opportunity for IPID to start engaging with different community-based organizations as well as the civil society. When one came into IPID, I realized that there was just a cold approach to dealing with these cases. One, I picked up that there was just a lack of transparency in how we're dealing with these cases. And good work has been done by the team itself. But the challenge is, how do we begin to engage communities in what we are doing as IPID? So one of the things that I've requested the team to look at is the development of the gender-based violence and femicide strategy internally that will deal with, one, conducting outreach programs to communities and engaging communities on cases that have been reported. And some of the cases, we realize that there are challenges in those cases. But because there wasn't any constant communication between the community and IPID, people felt that IPID does not exist and it does not do what it's supposed to be doing. But second to that, it's also making sure that our own investigators are also being trained, because one of the challenges that I've picked up when we're engaging some of our public prosecutors was the beefing up of evidence in cases that are already being rejected, such that they lead to a prosecution being declined and all that. One, it's also making sure that they're being trained on statement taking, proper statement taking. Two, it's around, I've picked up in the University of KZN, there is basic forensic investigation course, which I think our team must undergo, because it's quite important that they do that so that they can get to the depth of investigation and make sure that they provide sufficient information whenever they present their cases to court for prosecution. And the other important thing is, I wanted us to be so transparent such that I have initiated the process of opening up a toll-free number for the department. The process is already underway, where communities can start engaging us. Already we have engaged communities, and what I've done in the meantime, whilst we're waiting for that process, I have given my own cell phone number where communities are starting to engage with me. At any given time, I'm getting calls from women who are shouting out and saying, I've been harassed in different in a particular police station and nothing's been done.
But Advocate, rather Mentla saying, it's going back to the Advocate's point, that it shouldn't get to the point where it needs to be elevated to your level. So maybe just take us through that number that you are talking about, so that South Africans they are able to call it and make use of it when they do find themselves in these very terrible situations. What is that number?
Currently, I'm using my number. It's 083-254-0094. The reason why I'm giving this number is because currently that process is underway. Okay. So up until one of the networks give us that proper toll-free number, is then that we can be able to publish that number. But what is also important, it's also strengthening a relationship with your community-based structures. Because We have community policing forums in various police stations, and I'm not sure what is their role if we're going to be failing communities like we're failing communities. We are communicating with them consistently. I'll just make an example with the case in El Dorado Park, where I've roped in community structures, where I've roped in community policing forums to say, start talking to communities and us, and sitting down with communities, engage us, and tell us where are the challenges. If there are any challenges, they must do that. But more than anything else, I've even said to community-based structures, start giving us credible witnesses, because along the way you find that people come and report and make noise about a case, and then the next thing when you go back and say, I'm asking for witnesses to come forward, no witnesses are coming forward, or we get hostile witnesses, or we find that the person just decides that I'm no longer going to be a witness to a particular case. So it's important that we continue to do that. But what is also critical that I have brought into the department is that I'm on a recruitment drive of learnerships, where we are targeting final year law students as well as forensic students to come and assist us in dealing with some of the backlog that we are currently experiencing. Because we've got a lot of backlog in the department, and we need to look at those cases, particularly the prematurely closed cases. Look at them and see how do we begin to beef up those cases. And if there are outstanding post-mortem results, let's do that. Let's look at them and then review those cases and then send them back for prosecution to NPA.
All right, talking about hitting the ground running, Mantla Singh, thank you so much for that. Minister, I want to bring you in now and talk about, specific groups of women. The NSP is quite clear that all women should enjoy being serviced by the criminal justice system, right? But we know that, there's specific groups of women, such as women with disabilities and trans women, face challenges in assessing and accessing the system. How can we make sure that these services are accessed or accessible to people that are not living in an urban area, for example, so living far-flung, but also the fact that people have certain disabilities and they're not heard as they should purely because of that. Take us through what's been happening and what's being done, really.
All South African women from all walks of life, in particular the women with disability and LGBTQI plus, should not fear us. People who are sitting here on the front row are not here to service themselves. We are supposed to be on the side of the people. But for the period that one has spent with the ministry in the presidency, we have even gone to, yes, we now have the NSP. Let's have interministerial committee. I'm going to read out the names. Maite Nkwana Mashavani, Minister Tsele, Minister of Police, Minister Mtunu, Minister of Public Service and Administration, because there was a question raised earlier on about how gender-based violence still prevails, even in the civil service. Minister Zulu, Minister of Social Development, Minister Mboweni, because we need money, Minister Lamula, because the three bills that answers almost 50% of what Dr. Dikoko was saying here needs to be fast-tracked, if not even more. Minister Lamola, Minister of Justice, we make 49% of that, which should be soon, and very soon, and really late. A council that must make 49, 51% members of the civil society that makes a council, so that we should not continue making our people feel they owe government something when government owe them a service. I have just come back from Witbank, Minister Cele, I can tell you that I have been to the FCS center. I visited to a hospital for COVID-19 purposes. I visited the biggest clinic I've never seen before. But I've also insisted on visiting a police station. We didn't tell them we were coming. But
what did you find? What did you find, Minister?
Well, what I found was that which he's saying I can attest to, because the FCS unit has been formed, and there are more than 18, 10 were out working on how they should help women and rape kids. I can say now, last year I visited a police station and I thought I want to go back to home to sleep. But now I can say things are beginning to happen. But we need to launch the council, like yesterday. Even the president is becoming impatient, where there's this real partnership between civil society, because they work very hard, and government that is paid to do work, do that which we should be doing. Lastly, every agency, be it of government, every department, every company need to have GBVF sign on, so that we know what we're dealing with. We are South Africans, and this is an instruction from the president, so that there is none that's idling and that will say we will go back to the good old story of go discuss it at home. So it ends here, not
all hands on deck, essentially, Minister. All hands on deck. I know that you're probably itching to respond to some of the voice notes that we presented, but also the advocates' sentiments, Minister Cele. But I do want to open the conversation without running the risk of just speaking amongst ourselves. We have South Africans that are listening to the conversation far and wide, and of course using the WhatsApp line 079 070 9985. Colonel, surely there are some more voices that are out there. Let's take a listen, maybe, and also maybe just read us some text as to what is being said around this topic.
Thanks, Lorando. Let's start with the text messages. One comes from Tabo, says, a brother to a Busisiwe who was brutally murdered by her boyfriend on the 26th of February 2019, stabbed 13 times. This case is dragging, still no justice. The femicide case has not been prioritized by the state. They keep on postponing. We want justice and closure. And another one says, what have you done since the murder of Uyinene last year in September? What measures have changed or being implemented by the police in the country? Please provide us with proof in form of statistics, documents, and policy. And the third one then says, my suggestion, urgent steps that the SAPS should take to improve the service of GBV victims. Process every piece of DNA evidence from each crime. Number 2, process DNA evidence within hours, not months or years. Match the perpetrators between different cases and present all cases together to ensure serial rapists, killers, and attackers get maximum sentences. And finally, train, and more training for your SAPS members in the CSC.
All right, Colonel, maybe a voice note or two?
Let's go to a voice note.
Hi, my name is Lucas Mahlangu from Secunda. I think gender-based violence is a serious challenge in our country, and we need to make sure that working together we deal with it. But most importantly, the Minister of Police must ensure that he creates a specialized, dedicated unit that deals with gender violence. Hi.
My name is Nofundo. I'm working for SAPS. My answer will be based on my experience. As I said, I'm working for SAPS. I am working for a broken organization, which is SAPS. Women face GBV at home, and the following day they have to deal and solve the same cases that are exactly like what is happening at home. So I don't think those people are strong enough to deal with the same thing that they are dealing with it at home. My input will be, can it be made a priority to offer assistance to all women who are working for SABC? Even if there is no specific case, then we just have the workshop, even if it's once a year, so that people can come out, because I know at some point you cannot just come out and say there is this problem at home, and then when you deal with the case like that, you will end up being bitter, and you cannot even focus and give the right input or give the right solution, because you take your side because you know what is happening, or you will try to hide your own pain. Thank you.
You could hear the anguish in her voice, Minister. She's a SABC member. She's asking for support from the service. Maybe let's start answering that question. Is there enough support for South African police service members to handle these cases? Because she talks to the fact that, abuse could be happening at home, and then she's coming here having to service someone who's being abused while she's experiencing the very same thing at home.
Again, people responsible for that are here, but I just want to go a little bit across the board here. Advocate is here. Sonke is here. Controlesa is here, and I hope other civil and other organizations are here. So I'm looking at these figures. 18,231 rapes. They happen in residences, in family, friends, homes, neighbors, and to the people that are known to perpetrators. So this is 18,000. This is the last year. So, which means that while we deal with everybody in every, so society must be brought on board on these matters. Not only that, you'll find that even at schools, places like educational institutions, last year 380 people were raped there at in education institution. So this what this member of the SAPS, that the commissioner is here, the head of HR is here, they'll have to find her. But it's not the only one. But it's not the only SAPS members that as they go to work to support women that have been abused in whatever work environment themselves, they had the same experience last night. So this internal empowerment of organizations must be a proper, just imagine the female magistrate that is trying the rape case, she was raped previous night herself. The advocate that is representing was raped. So it's not just out there. We start from within, and these issues and these programs must be really, really brought in and empower everybody. And as you see, these 18,000, these are not safe sanctuaries, these homes. These residents are not safe. So we just need to work on them. And Commissioner is here. Myself, I would like to see this member. But this member must be the point A of all other members. I know there are structures that are dealing with the matter, but this tells you that those structures are not adequate. As you hear them. Last point, question of Uyinene. Firstly, let's agree that that person is doing life sentence, was arrested doing life sentence. But we do want to emphasize the point to say it doesn't help much doing life sentence, but where was Uyinene? So will have to work hard on prevention rather than reaction. And I think it's for all of us to work on that. Get the structures, get the programs that will work hard on prevention of these matters. Maybe in 2 minutes or 1 minute, abusing you, the HR of the South African Police must tell us what are the programs. But more than knowing those programs, they need to be enhanced for this fact that this member says so. As you can say, she's really feeling it. You can hear from her voice that she's crying for assistance herself there. Thank you.
Minister, you do speak to that, and we will definitely get more from the SAPS regarding, are our detectives up to the task? Do we have programs in place to really give the support that's necessary? But before we go there, you spoke about, all hands on deck from all the various, formations, and they are here, Minister. Prevention is better than cure. All right.
Unfortunately, we have to come out of that particular briefing to go into another one. Of course, an important one there that the Minister Pegicele and the rest of the security cluster are a part of, talking about GBV being a priority crime.